What's up, everybody? Jared Diggity TV here. So, it's been argued recently that reality is not an absolute, that each individual has his own perception of reality, and the implication is that because each of us perceives the world through his own eyes, reality itself changes from person to person. While it's true that everyone perceives reality differently, reality could care less about our perceptions. Reality does not change to adapt our viewpoints. Reality is what it is. Reality is fact. Reality is truth. Reality, however, is not always a known, which is where perception of reality comes in. While reality is a fixed factor in the equation of life, perception of reality is a variable. This is why it is so important to learn to differentiate between a principle and an opinion. The most significant aspect of a principle is that it can neither be created nor altered. Thus, a principle is the essence of reality, and it is what it is, and it's up to us to discover it. The problem arises when people refuse to accept the reality that principles can only be discovered, and instead choose to believe they could create their own principles, which means they believe they could create their own reality, and that's a belief that could lead to disastrous consequences. There are an infinite number of natural laws to be discovered, and unfortunately, you don't have to have a detailed understanding of every one of them to achieve your goals. However, there is one law with which you must totally be familiar and which you must unfailingly use as a guide for your actions. The law I'm referring to is the ultimate immutable law of the universe, the foundation of reality itself. Actions have consequences. Although I believe most of us intellectually understand the inherent truth of this principle, first-hand observation has convinced me that very few people give it more than a passing thought as they go about their daily lives. You can see that when they're driving. Why would they ignore that? Because truth can often be harsh, and as human beings, we quite naturally gravitate toward less pain and more pleasure. We simply do not like our little self-delusive worlds to be upset by such a trivial matter as truth. We don't worry about the consequences we may have to deal with tomorrow. We just want to feel good today. However, we only succeed in deluding ourselves when we engage in such a shallow thinking. The reality is that one must be willing to experience the discomfort often associated with the truth if his objective is to achieve good long-term results. Another major obstacle to an accurate perception of reality is what I like to refer to as the paradigm restriction. We are all confined not only to the planet on which we live, but metaphorically speaking, we reside within our own little mental worlds. It's difficult to comprehend ideas and circumstances we are not accustomed to hearing and seeing with the invisible parameters that surround our lives. Thus, one of the causes of our differing perceptions of truth is that we all start to form our own set of assumptions. This is precisely the reason why the serious seeker of truth must learn to question everything and be willing to give up cherished notions, even if it means suffering a little discomfort. The best antidote for the paradigm restriction is an open mind. This requires a rejection of some of the custom and tradition as a basis of fact, and in its place, acceptance of logic and reason. To get on the right track in life requires that you learn to correctly perceive reality and have the courage to accept it. You all probably know at least one Mr. Magoo, someone who simply does not have the mental capacity to correctly perceive the reality. He is the individual who truly believes, in spite of the mountains of evidence to the contrary, that the pie-in-the-sky business deals can be closed, that politicians are better equipped than he is to determine what's best for him, and that other people will act in his best interest and subordinate their own interests to his needs, which in simple terms means he's totally out of touch with reality. An ostrich is an entirely different creature than Mr. Magoo. The ostrich has the mental capacity to correctly perceive reality, but stubbornly refuses to do so. Hard as it to believe that anyone would make such a conscious choice, millions of people do it on a regular basis. The ostrich is more tragic than Mr. Magoo because an individual who knows the facts but refuses to acknowledge them is the greatest of all fools. He may have a significant amount of knowledge, but his knowledge is corrupted by his misguided desire to recreate the world in his own image. Thus, when a person speaks of reality, what he's really referring to is his perception of reality. Everything that has ever been written, taught, or believed is based on someone's perception of reality. For example, everything that I've just said is based on my perception of reality. You are, of course, free to accept or reject any of all of my observations about reality, and where we have differences of opinion, one of us will suffer negative consequences to the degree which his perceptions are incorrect. On the other hand, To the degree either one of us is correct in his perceptions of reality, his results will tend to be positive. But one thing that will never be affected by our respective views is reality itself. You should always keep this in front of you, center, when you go about your day-to-day affairs. Trying to make it through a world without a solid grasp of reality is like jumping out of an airplane without a parachute. In the words of Bishop Butler, it is what it is and it be what it be. Then why do we choose to be deceived? You know this, man. Let's see. No, what I meant to say is, in the words of Bishop Butler, things and actions are what they are, and the consequences of them will be what they be. Why then should we desire to be deceived? That's what I meant to say. Have a good day. Jared Diggity TV, one for the record book. Food for thought.